And our top story this hour is Venezuela's deep divide. U.S. officials reportedly holding secret talks with top aides to embattle Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to push him out of power and pave the way for free elections. Venezuela's top officials negotiating to secure safety. The talks considered a major breakthrough, as the regime has previously opposed holding a new vote, and come as the country suffers one of the worst economic crises in history. Joining me right now is the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Honduras, Mexico, and Philippines, former Deputy Secretary of State and former National Intelligence Director, John Negroponte. Good to see you, sir. Thanks very much for being here.
Good morning.
Your reaction to what's happened in terms of these secret talks between the U.S. and Venezuela?
Well, it kind of takes me back to the time that we were trying to negotiate Mr. Noriega out of power in Panama, and those talks ended up not faring too well, and ultimately the administration had to go in with force. This Bush administration ultimately did that. I don't know if this situation will turn out differently. I think the big issue is what's the price we're going to have to pay to Mr. Maduro for reaching some kind of agreement? Is he going to be let off the hook completely? Is he not going to be accountable for all the terrible things that have happened in his country, for the fact that Venezuela has become a narco-trafficking state? So I think the devil is going to be in the details. The other thing is what kind of opportunity is this going to result in for the opposition? Are they going to be kind of frozen out with the old Maduro types allowed to stay in office or stay in their current positions? I think the details are going to be extremely important in this, and I hope that we're taking a very firm line with them.
Yeah, well, let me switch gears and ask you about immigration, because the Trump administration is now proposing a rule to change border detentions, allowing the government to hold migrant families in custody indefinitely. The move likely to face court challenges, we know. It would end that 20-day limit currently in place. But what do you think about this, Ambassador? Because, we know that a number of people are coming to the border because they know, they're basically saying, I give up. They want to get caught because they know that there's that 20-day limit in place to be held.
Yeah, right. Well, I gathered that it is not really a matter of doing it indefinitely, and I think they're going to process these. It's actually easier to process these cases if the families are together, both the parents and the children, rather than separating them. I think the important thing is to have a good processing approach that is able to deal with these cases as quickly as possible. On the other point that you made, I think that the existing system has been an incentive for people to want to get children across the border, because then they can be released into our country and can stay for an indefinite period of time. So it's been a bit of a magnet for migration from points south up towards our country, and I think something did have to be done.
Yeah. Well, when we went to the border, it was incredible to me when I saw these kids and the positions that they were being put in, and they're all showing up sick. Many of them, because they've been walking or hitchhiking for 4 months.
Right. And I think, again, I think the problem is that the current system gives an incentive for people to want to take the chance of coming up here and crossing illegally, in the hopes that then once the children are in, ultimately this will help get the parents in as well. I think much better that they be held together, and ultimately, of course, much better that we find ways of dealing with the these migration issues at their source, at their root, in the northern triangle of Central America and in Mexico. And I think that can be done. The one thing I would question about the administration's policy is the cutback that they've carried out with respect to assistance, economic assistance to Central America. I think that's the wrong direction. I think what we've got to do is try to help them improve their economic conditions. Right.
That's what Lindsey Graham has been saying as well. Lindsey Graham says that he's poised to actually increase aid to Central America if we can do a deal in terms of limiting the apprehensions and the flood of people.
Right. He's absolutely right. Yeah. I endorse that totally.
Well, what's your take on what's going on in Hong Kong? Such hostility, showing no signs of stopping. Banks condemning the violence, publishing full-page newspaper ads in Hong Kong calling to restore order. Supporters of the protests include Taiwan's leader. Taiwan's leader praised the Cathay Pacific CEO for not giving the names of his staff members who participated in the protests to Chinese authorities. Instead, Instead, he only listed his own name because, of course, Chinese authorities want to know who's protesting because there will be ramifications for them. They're going to be detained in China.
Right. Well, so this is a very difficult situation. And earlier in the program, you mentioned the 50-year, I guess it's 2047, when Hong Kong is slated to revert totally to Beijing's control in terms of its legal regime and so forth. I think the way you could summarize this is that the people of Hong Kong really want conditions to be as close to what they were in 1997 when the British relinquished sovereignty back to the Chinese. And I think the Chinese government wants to move the schedule forward as quickly as possible, and they're sort of bringing pressure to bear to make 2047 come sooner, if you will. And I think therein lies the struggle. And the Hong Kong people, they don't want to have the lives and the standard of living and so forth that people have on mainland China. They want to live the kind of life they've been living for all these years. They've got a first world standard of living in that country. They have basic civic freedoms, and that's what they'd like to preserve.
Yeah.
And the elite in Hong Kong have multiple passports, British passports, Chinese, whatever. But, you know, the rank and file in Hong Kong don't, and they have nowhere else to go, and they want to have a good life for themselves there.
It's an international financial hub, but knowing that it is all changing in 2047, knowing that it will go back to Chinese rule, why would you go there and open a business? Why would you go there and take your company public? I mean, it's, right?
Well, that's getting more difficult to contemplate. Look, I served in Hong Kong from 1961 to 1963 as a vice consul. We never thought 1997 was going to come. We thought the British were going to find some way to renew the lease with the Chinese, but that didn't happen. So I think 2047 will happen also. Well, for those young enough to think about those things, you know, I think you're probably right. They're starting to put it into their calculations.
Right. That's why there's so many.
And the Chinese government is basically bringing pressures to bear that is likely to accelerate that kind of thinking.
Exactly, and that's why you've got so many young people in the streets. Ambassador, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador John Negroponte joining us.